sunrise. Just open up your door to breathe in the sunshine. Sing with us on the porch.
Today is June 6th, 2015. Joining us on the porch is World War II veteran Bob Green from the Oswego County Tourism Advisory Council Green Team Subcommittee.
The best place for family. What are you waiting for? Where friendships run deeper. Come join us on the porch. So glad you're on the porch.
Hey kids, I'm back. And I'm glad you are back too. It's good to see all of the people paying attention on Concert Window and our audience in-house. And I'm so glad that you are hanging out and listening on our website to the archived shows. Thanks for joining us. So while I was traveling abroad, actually I was traveling a plane. I didn't travel any broads while I was out. However, what I did do was I went on a rafting trip. And I went through Desolation Canyon in Utah. And it rained every day. And there was a ton of water. And what that means, though, is that a lot of people wanted to be out on the water because it was running really well, and there were some really great rapids. And I got to run some rapids myself, which was a lot of fun. But we'll talk about that another time. But while I was just kind of floating down a slow, soft part of the river, I came around a bend, and off in the distance, I saw this single canoe out in the middle of the river. And as I got closer, I noticed an older gentleman standing, using his paddle in a perfect J-stroke on the side of his canoe. And as I got closer and closer, that man turned around and the sun hit his face just right. Well, we'll meet him later. But we had some really incredible conversations while we were out on the river. And he was out there in his own canoe. He built his canoe, but we talked about that then. And today we're going to talk about some other things. So I'm really glad that Bob Green is here, and we're going to talk about his movement and what he's doing in the county and with some state support as well. We're going to hear some great music, and I'm just really glad to be back. It's been a great time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
I'd speak for the trees. If I were a seagull, I'd soar in the breeze. But I'm only human, and all I can be is me. If I were a willow, I'd know how to weep. If I were the ocean, I'd be really deep. But I'm only human, and all I can be is me. I've got a little voice deep in my heart. It keeps saying you're special, so do your part. 'Cause you are just human and you're a good place to start. If I were a sailboat, I'd set out to sea. If I were a sidewalk, I'd skin up your knee. But I'm only human, and all I can be is me. If I were a bullfrog, I'd know how to leap. If I were a teddy, I'd help you to sleep. But I'm only human, and all I can be is me. I've got a little voice deep in my heart. It keeps saying you're special, so do your part. 'Cause you are just human and you're a good place to start. So though I'm not the Lorax, I'll speak for the trees. And I'm not a seagull, but I'll play in the breeze. 'Cause I'm only human, and all I can be is me. All I can be is me. All I can be is me.
And now, a word from our sponsor. Dating as far back as 2030 BC, pickles are noted in many historical accounts. They are claimed to be Cleopatra's prized beauty secret and can be found in scripts of Shakespeare and the Bible. It all started in the Tigris Valley. Pickles have fed hungry sailors on long voyages and Russian families through long winters. But it was a large movement of Eastern European Jews to New York City in the late 1800s that brought the great kosher dill to the United States. Thanks to that movement, your hamburgers, sandwiches, wedding receptions, Thanksgiving dinners, barbecues, and even your pregnant wives have never been without dill pickles. Heck, even lumberjacks' favorite pastime was to visit that big wooden barrel out in the woods just to get a little pickle. This incredible brined cucumber even has a very successful business philosophy built around it. So the next time you're serving dinner, flop a slice of kosher dill goodness on that platter and send them off smiling. There are many pickles in this world. However, not all of them are dill. Dill pickles, everybody, found where all good things are sold.
We are here at the National Philosophical Debate Championships. We have an incredible final debate matchup for you. For the first time in the history of these debates, we have an 8-year-old matched against an adult. 8-year-old Derry Brinkle will be matching wits with the returning champion, Franklin Cumberpile. All right, gentlemen, the topic for debate tonight is, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Franklin won the toss, so Derry, please start us off.
What's a woodchuck? Why don't they just call it a groundhog? Why is there 2 names for that one animal? Chuck. Isn't that a name? Well, chucking also means throwing. Throwing? A groundhog can throw? I thought they walked on 4 legs. They can lift up one to actually throw something?
I believe that based on the size of a woodchuck, it could chuck wood the size of...
And wouldn't a ball be easier to throw? Why are they throwing wood? Oh, I see. If they could, but they can't. It's impossible. So how in the world would you figure it out if it is impossible?
You see, I don't think it is impossible. If you think about the muscular structure and the bone size of the groundhog or the woodchuck, as we're talking here, then you might be able to figure out the ratio.
And what size of wood? Are we talking baseball bat size or wood chip size? If it was wood chip size, a woodchuck could chuck wood. They dig and it could dig and chuck the wood chips through its legs.
I'm going to have to forfeit the match. I have nothing left. This young man's logic is brilliant. As the returning champion, I pass the baton to you, young Derry Binkle. Well done, young man. Well done.
You?
Well, there you have it, folks. Derry Brinkle, this year's National Philosophical Debate Champion.
You're listening to On the Porch Radio Hour. We'll be back in just a moment.
What's happening in Central New York is brought to us by iHeart Oswego. The Port City Co-op hosts an outdoor flea market at West Bridge and 2nd Streets on the 1st and 3rd Sundays of each month from 12 to 5 p.m. Call 315-529-5177 for more information. The Not Too Far From Home comedy tour comes to the American Foundry in Oswego tonight at 8 p.m. The show features comedians Jawan Nelson, Brad Todd, and Dave Cooperman. Proceeds benefit the Rotary Club. Call 342-2332 for more information. SUNY Oswego's Penfield Library hosts a book sale today from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Visit www.oswego.edu/library/book sale for more information. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof opens June 12th at the CNY Playhouse. Visit cnyplayhouse.com for more information. The Oswego Music Hall hosts a season finale with headliner Jory Nash on Saturday, June 13th, beginning at 4:30 p.m. Visit oswegomusichall.org for more information. CNY Arts Center hosts a Writers Cafe the last Sunday of the month with the next session June 28th at 6 p.m. The Arts Center is also currently offering adult painting classes and writing classes and will be hosting an artist meetup on June 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. Visit cnyartcenter.com for more information. The Red Room sessions at the Wooden Apple Farmstead are a time for songwriters, musicians, and anyone else who wants to build their musical skill and knowledge to get together. We share songs we are working on, bounce musical ideas off each other, and we usually have time to just play a little music. This is a supportive environment where all levels of songwriting and musical experience are welcome. The next session is June 28th at 6 p.m. Local author Jim Furfaya and musicians Gina Holsapple and Matthew Wood invite you to join them for an evening of music and poetry, inspired by the music of the 60s and 70s. The show is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Central Square Library.
We are the stewards of our universe. We have temporary use of it while we are here. It's up to us to be responsible, to take care of it, thus leaving it a better place for our children and generations to come. This is the Louis L'Amour quote on Bob Green's plaque. I want to welcome Bob Green, World War II veteran, and I believe the man that started the whole Green Team movement, right, Bob?
That's right, yes. Back in October. I got tired of picking things up off my lawn and hearing everybody's misconception about how they're cleaning up highways and things like that. It sends a kind of a negative message to the public that it's all cleaned up now, it's okay to litter again. And there you have it.
That's right. That's right. Good for you. So in October, you decided you were going to start this movement. And what did you do? Did you start talking to people, or how did you get started?
Well, I had a meeting with Janet Clorkin, and I told her what I had in mind, and she said, well, I think you should be involved with the tourism, because that has something to do with cleaning the county up. And so that's their idea of having me do this, because they want a clean county for tourists to come into. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's going really well.
Yes, it is. Well, back in the 60s, there was really a lot of public awareness about litter and so forth. And that's kind of drifted by the wayside. The signs on the roads are gone, and people just are careless. They throw their material out the window. And that's what we're trying to correct. We're trying to do it with by public awareness and also through education. And the education part is we have a pilot program going on with the Fulton schools, and the superintendent of schools, Bill Lynch, has tied me up with the children in these environmental groups, and we give them out some bags, and so that's what we're doing there. So
that's fantastic. You know, Bob, it seems as though you've got quite a bit of life experience. You've been around for a couple years. How do you find the younger kids when you're talking to them? How do you find that they respond to you?
Well, they look at me and there don't seem to be any reaction to them. So I think that it takes some time for my message to sink in, and so they'll realize what's going on.
Yeah.
So, but the adults are really enthused about it, and I think that this helps the kids come along.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And I get the impression that you've made some really great connections with quite a few adults already.
Right. Yeah. We've I sent a letter to the environmental people, and I got a response, and they're willing to work with us. I sent one to the chairman of the, I don't know if that's the right title, of the automobile, and they sent answers, but they couldn't help us out. Their setup doesn't allow it. But you stop and think about it, the waste goes on, and automobiles and all motorized vehicles are the most efficient means for the distribution of litter by the people. It sounds kind of corny, but that's what I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Tell me a little bit about the connection that you've made with Senator Ritchie.
Yes. We wrote her a letter, and then she responded by having her representative join our monthly meetings. So he's feeding back anything that we have that she might be able to help us with. We really haven't been able to. She hasn't really been able to help us yet, but there will come a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we build up, yes.
Yeah. And so you said that her office had somebody that was meeting with you. Where are you meeting? And tell us a little bit about those meetings and what you're doing in those meetings.
Well, generally, pardon me, we meet at Canales in Oswego 1 month, and so far the next month we are meeting in Mimi's, and so we go over all the projects that we have facing us that we're working on, like my meetings with so-and-so, and how we're doing with distribution of the bags, and any new things that might be coming along.
Yeah.
I've had, we've got a movement coming up in the end of the month, the Tunes in June, and the bank is going to feature the anti-litter campaign as the subject for that day. I'm kind of looking forward to that. You're going to get a good cross-section of people. And our program is just working around Fulton area as a tryout, and as we get through with that and see how it works, we'll start going into the other areas, the Oswego and so forth. And speaking of Oswego, we're trying to get an okay to put signs on their barrels for their program coming up, Harbor Fest, and that'll be very effective. But so we got some stick-ons they call that'll stick right onto the barrels, so people get them, and it's the same design as the bags are, so they keep some continuity in the message going out to the people.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
that bag that you're talking about, I'm going to ask you about in just a minute, but I've taken some pictures of it, and that bag is going to get flashed across the screen here in a few minutes as we're talking. So as people are listening to the show on the website and it's coming across the slideshow, watch for that yellow bag, because that's going to be an important thing that you're going to be seeing around the county, and hopefully you'll end up with one or two, and you'll start putting your litter in there too. But how did the bag come about?
Well, Janet Clerkin of the Tourism Council had her team come up with it, and I thought it was a very smart idea. It's very simple and gets the message across.
That's right.
Yeah, and then it's attractive. People like it. And the one problem with the automobiles, it's hard to hang the bag in there. They've done away with knobs and things that you can put it on.
Right.
So you got to improvise, use some Velcro, or open your glove compartment and kind of hook the edge of it on there and let her hang that way. But I think people can do it.
I agree.
They have many cup holders in cars, but they don't have cigarette lighters anymore. That's a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, there are ways that they can do with their cigarette butts, just other than throwing them out the window.
Yeah, and that was something that you and I were talking about before the show. Is that it's a nice gesture that the automakers have gotten rid of the ashtray in the car, because it discourages smoking while you've got passengers. But it really, what it's doing is discouraging them from throwing their cigarette butts out any other place than the window.
Yeah. And I helped the Noon Rotary on pickup this spring here, and the thing I saw was cigarette butts all over the place, and they're tough to pick up.
They really are.
Yeah. And people got so used to just throwing them.
Yeah.
There used to be, there was a big push on forest fires to make sure you don't put your lighted cigarette butts out.
That's right.
And that was effective. And another point I could like to make is in the parks. You go camping in New York State, and you register, and they've got message there. If you carry it in, you carry it out.
That's right.
And they've got you because you're registered. And that's why I think it's important to get those signs back up there along the highways.
Yeah.
But it's going to be tough.
It might be tough, but you only started in October, and it seems like you're making some pretty big progress.
I get too impatient. Yeah.
Good. We need your impatience.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a nice PowerPoint presentation prepared by Colleen Grimshaw, and it's very sharp. It's got a lot of messages in there following my write-up that I've given you here, and it tells the whole story. It actually has the one of the Indian, it was back in the 60s, showed him paddling down the stream, and all of a sudden you see these pieces of waste going by him, and he pulls his canoe up on the shore, looks around at all the waste, and then the camera focuses on his eye, and there's a tear coming down his cheek.
That's right.
He's so disappointed because Indians really respected the environment.
That's right.
They prayed to it.
That's right.
But it isn't just a Oswego County problem, if I may say.
Yeah.
It's a national problem.
Yes.
I think someone was telling me this Mount Everest, hikers go up, and that is just loaded with garbage.
Yeah.
And how are you going to clean that up?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah.
And over in Germany, the lady was telling me it's pretty clean there, but when you go on the American base, it's bad.
Really?
That's sad.
That
so
is
it's,
sad.
It's our makeup today.
That's right.
That's what I'm trying to change.
Good for you.
Thank you.
That's exciting and inspiring.
It is. It's every day something new comes up. I get discouraged, but then something will come along and boom, we're back into it.
That's right. That's right.
I have. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Bob, in the couple minutes that we have left, I'm wondering how people can access you and find out how they can, where they might be able to hear you speak. Can they try, if they're interested in helping out, or if they have ideas or questions, what's the best way for them to try to get in touch with you and your green team?
I think it's through the Oswego County Tourism Council.
Easy.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So they can call Janet Clerkin at the...
I would say so. She'll probably shoot me for suggesting that, but there's always someone there, yes.
That's right, so they can just call the office, yeah.
Well, they're in this too. They're interested in getting this thing cleaned up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in getting a hold of Bob Green and the Green Team Subcommittee, the best way for you to do that is to contact Oswego County Tourism Advisory Council, and that's in Oswego, and you can ask more about the Green Team and try to find out how you can become involved and how you can support their efforts. Bob's got a lot of people that are supporting his efforts already, and some of them are at the county and even the state level.
That's right. It's very encouraging.
It's really encouraging.
But we're also working on getting news coverage, Valley News. I'm going to be interviewed tomorrow and get things set up.
Excellent.
When we have our meetings, we take pictures of the group, and then we put that. Our goal is to get that in the paper with a little blurb about what we talked about and so forth.
Absolutely.
So that helps the public awareness. And by the way, this little thing we're doing here, not so little, is really a big step in getting public awareness. So I thank you for it.
Thank you, Bob. And thanks for all your hard work, too.
Thank you.
Yeah. I look forward to hearing more about the Green Team in the future, and I'm going to, I don't know if that's okay or not, but I'm going to keep my yellow bag, and we're going to use it, and we're going to reuse it. So
that's a sales tool.
That's right. Yeah, we'll put pictures up, and we'll tell everybody about it. Bob, thanks so much for being on the porch, and thanks for all the hard work you're doing.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Gina, I've been gone too long. Can you sing me another song?
When the prairie met the ocean, she said, "What do you see? 'Cause I've heard things about you that I think are just make-believe. I can see that you're strong, but is that really all? I've been waiting to meet you." You've seen me get restless and lose control. I have buried their loved ones in the depths of my soul. I'm the tempest inside you and the terrors that bind you. They've tried to tame me for years. I have soaked in their laughter, I've swallowed their tears. I have begged and have cursed when they've called me by name. But I wish they'd not wish me tame. The ocean said, "Prairie, I've heard of you too, and I think that your life is one I wish I knew. I can see that you're strong, but is that really all? I've been waiting to meet you." They plowed through my treasures, hoping I'd grow. I have buried their lifetimes as they begged for control. Without me, they would have never survived. Now they have left me barely alive. They've tried to tame me for years. My wind and my lightning is all that they fear. I have begged and have cursed when they've called me by name. But I wish they'd not wish me tame. I have come to you broken, but I've come to you whole. With all that I'm left with, I've come to behold you. They've tried to tame me for years. I have soaked in their laughter, I've swallowed their tears. I have begged and have cursed when they've called me by name. But I wish they'd not wish. I wish they'd not wish. I wish they'd not wish me tame. Thank you.
February 22nd, 2003. Henry Lefebvre had just stepped up to the bar, and he was going to order himself a drink when the man sitting next to him turned, and Henry saw the news channel symbol on the man's jacket. The man had a big TV smile, and he turned to Henry and he said, "I know you." And Henry said, "Geez, mister, I don't know if you do. I'm not from around here." The news anchor said, "Well, neither am I." And he put out his hand, and he introduced himself, and Henry introduced himself back. And the man said, "You're an Olympic athlete." And Henry turned to look at all of his friends. Henry was in Lake Placid that weekend, just on a little bit of a friendly business trip, hanging out with some of the folks that he worked with, and they decided to go to Lake Placid to take a ride down the bobsled run. 'Cause you can go to Lake Placid, you can take a ride down the bobsled run, and they pile all you and your friends, and they have a driver in the back, and they take you down. And what a great way to get out of Tonkahogan and go out with some friends. So they were spending the weekend in Lake Placid, and they didn't realize it, but there was a big college tournament that weekend, a bobsled tournament. And there were bobsleds from the Army, and there were bobsleds from the Navy team, and there were bobsleds from colleges all over the place. Penn State was there, and they all had their bobsleds, and they had big trailers, and they were walking around with their team uniforms. And this sports channel had come out to do the news, and this man thought that Henry was also an Olympic athlete. And he thought that Henry was there because he must have been a bobsled runner. This man knew that he knew Henry, and he knew he was an Olympic athlete, so he must be a bobsled or maybe a luger. And Henry just looked at his friends, and they all smiled and shook their heads, and they nodded. And they said, yep, he is. And then he was glued. Henry'd had fun like this before, so he was able to cruise into it a little bit. And he knew enough about Olympic sports that he thought he could get through. And so he just got a smile, and he put his hands up in the air like he had just won. And he said, yes, somebody recognized me. And then, of course, then one of the other friends said, well, of course he did. He's an Olympic wrestler. And Henry thought, okay, I can do this. And so the gentleman said, I knew it. I knew you were an Olympic athlete. And he turned to his buddies, and they all were laughing and patting him on the back, and they were like, this is cool. So the anchor turned, got a real serious look on his face, and he said, I'm going to bet you 2 pitchers of beer that I can beat you in a dart match. And Henry said, 2 pitchers of beer over a game of darts? And the news anchor just smiled and said, I think I'm making him nervous. And Henry said, well, it's been a long time since I've played darts, but I guess, would you rather wrestle for it? And he smiled, and the anchor said, no, we're going to play darts. I've always wanted to be able to say I beat an Olympic athlete at something, and this is my chance. So Henry then finished ordering his beer. He walked over to the dartboard, and he took the darts out, and he walked back over to the anchor, and he said, okay, do you want to shoot first or last? And the anchor smiled and said, I'll shoot last, because you're only going to get to shoot once anyway. Now, of course, in a game of darts, everybody has to shoot more than once or else, the game never ends. But what the anchor didn't know is that Henry did wrestle, not in the Olympics, but in high school and college he wrestled. And so he knew enough, and he knew enough names that he could get this man talking about wrestling and get him all starry-eyed. And Henry'd shot darts before, and he wasn't bad, but he thought this anchor must have already had some alcohol in him. He was feeling pretty brave. And so if Henry could get him talking Olympics, and if he could get him distracted enough, he could win the match. So Henry took the darts, and he threw 2 20s and a bullseye. First 3 darts. And he looked over at the news anchor. He said, all right, I guess I did my best for my one chance. And he laughed, and the news anchor turned a little bit more pale. But he took the darts, and he gave Henry a run for his money. But Henry chewed his ear off about John Smith and Bruce Baumgartner and Kenny Monday and all of these legends that were Olympic wrestlers that he knew growing up. And he talked about how he'd gotten to meet them, and he'd wrestled with them, and he'd trained with them. And he talked about his time in the Olympics. And it was all made up. But the news anchor was swallowing every last drop until that last dart was thrown. Henry didn't even wait for it to hit the dartboard. He just threw it, and before the dart even left his hand, he looked over at the anchor and put his hand out to shake his hand, because he knew that dart was going right where he wanted it to, and Henry was right. The last bullseye of the match, right in the middle. Henry shook the man's hand, walked over to the bartender and told him what he wanted in his 2 pitchers of beer. And just as he was walking away, the anchor said, could I at least have your autograph? Henry didn't know what else to do. So he took the napkin and he scribbled on it as much as he could and made it look like an autograph. And he handed it back to the news anchor in hopes that when the news anchor got back and he said, I met this guy and I got his autograph and he was an Olympic wrestler, nobody'd be able to read it and they wouldn't be able to prove it one way or the other. But as he sat down with his buddies and their 2 pitchers of beer after he won the match, the news anchor kept looking over and kept wanting to walk over and talk to him. So finally, Henry got up and walked over and he said, it was really great to hang out with you, and I'm really, really happy that you recognized me. That feels really good. And it was so cool that we got to play darts. And I wasn't gonna win, but I needed to play with integrity. Everything I've done in my life is through integrity, and I couldn't just let you win, I needed you to work for it. The news anchor just smiled and said, I didn't really think I'd beat you, but I wanted to give it a chance anyway. The news anchor decided he wanted to strike up more conversation and learn more about this man, so he asked him where he was living now, and Henry told him that he was from a town named Tonkahogan. And he explained this town, and the man was confused, and he didn't really understand how it worked. How can you live on the border of Canada and the U.S. but not belong to Canada or the U.S.? How can you be your own town? And how can everybody there not belong, but yet they all stay together? And Henry just smiled and listened to all these questions. And then they sat in silence for a minute, 2 minutes, 10 minutes, just looking. And the anchor said, "Are you going to answer my questions?" Henry said, "I am. I can answer all the questions you have. That's why I'm waiting. I want you to get them all out. Ask all that you can about me, about my hometown, because you're going to get the same answer for all of them. So get all the questions out, and then I'll give you my answer." So the man kept asking question after question after question, and still Henry just sat and smiled. Once Henry realized that the anchor was out of time, out of breath, and out of questions, Henry slid his bar stool over, put his arm around the man's shoulder, raised his own glass of beer, and he sang, "This is my home. This is my only home. This is the only sacred ground that I have ever known. And should I stray in the dark night alone, rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden. Rock me, goddess, in the gentle arms of Eden." Hey, thanks. And thanks for being here. Thanks for joining us. I want to thank Bob Green one more time. It's been really great to have you on the show. It's been really great to get to know you before the show and during the show. And I plan on seeing you around because what you're doing is really cool. And it's something that I could be really proud of being part of. And so I think you should be proud of it too. So thanks for coming on the porch.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to thank Gina for all of her songs. It's been fantastic coming home and hearing them. And I want to thank you for listening. Thanks for being on Concert Window. And thanks for coming to our website. And thanks for listening not to just this show, but all of our archived shows. Not because On the Porch wants your support, but we want your support for all of our guests because they all have something to do and they're all important things and you deserve to hear it and they deserve your support. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being on the side of On the Porch. And until next time, peace to your journey.
On the Porch is a production of the Wooden Apple Farmstead with host and writer Matthew Wood. Our musical director and sound technician is Gina Holsapple. Our stage manager is Ray Monet. Find information about past shows, being on the porch, and much more online at ontheporch.weebly.com.